The warning ignored. The silence of space shattered like glass as reality bent and twisted near Jupiter's orbit. A massive rift in the fabric of space-time opened with a sound that could be felt rather than heard, sending electromagnetic pulses racing toward every sensor array in the solar system. Through this cosmic wound stepped the first ships of the Vorthan Dominion, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the star field. Ambassador Thralix emerged from his command vessel, the Crimson Dagger, onto the observation deck of the approaching diplomatic ship. Standing 9 feet tall, his reptilian form was covered in scales that shifted from deep red to black, depending on his mood. 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws gestured toward the small blue world ahead. His yellow eyes, each the size of a human fist, focused on Earth with the intensity of a predator studying wounded prey. For 300 cycles, the Vorthan Dominion had swept across this arm of the galaxy like a crimson tide. 73. Star systems had fallen to their might. Countless species had either submitted or been crushed beneath the weight of Vorthan military superiority. This small, unremarkable world would be no different. The diplomatic shuttle Bloodstone approached Earth's orbital stations with deliberate slowness, its weapons powered but not yet targeting anything specific. Thralix wanted the humans to see what was coming. Fear, he had learned, was an excellent negotiator. Captain Maria Santos watched the alien vessel approach from the command center of Orbital Station 1. At 42, she had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her brown eyes remained steady as she studied the approaching ship through the main view screen. Around her, the control room buzzed with quiet activity as technicians monitored every sensor reading. The alien ship was beautiful in its own terrible way. Its sleek design spoke of a civilization that had perfected the art of war over countless millennia. Energy readings showed weapons capable of reducing the station to vapor in seconds. Yet Captain Santos remained calm, her hands folded behind her back as she waited. "Captain," Communications Officer Williams announced, his voice slightly strained. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel, audio and visual." "Put it through, Williams. Let's see what they have to say." The main screen shifted to show Ambassador Thralix in all his intimidating glory. The alien's voice, when it came through the universal translators, was like gravel being ground in a metal drum. "Primitive beings of the third planet," Thralix began, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. "I am Ambassador Thralix of the Vorthan Dominion. Your species has been chosen for incorporation into our great empire. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is an announcement." Behind the ambassador, holographic displays showed scenes of conquered worlds, cities burning under orbital bombardment, massive slave camps where alien species worked to build Vorthan monuments, fleets of warships so vast they blocked out the light of entire suns. "The Vorthan Dominion has brought order to 73 star systems," Thralix continued, his yellow eyes gleaming with pride. "We have unified countless species under our rule. Your world will serve as a mining colony. Your people will provide labor for our industrial complexes. Resistance is not only futile but will result in the complete sterilization of your planet." Captain Santos stepped forward, her expression remaining professionally neutral. "Ambassador Thralix, I am Captain Maria Santos of Earth Defense Command. We appreciate you traveling such a great distance to visit us. However, we must respectfully decline your generous offer." The silence that followed stretched for nearly 10 seconds. On the alien ship, Thralix's scales shifted to a deeper red, indicating either amusement or rage. His translator unit crackled as what might have been laughter emerged. "Decline?" The ambassador's 4 arms began making complex gestures, and Captain Santos noticed that each movement caused weapon systems on the alien ship to power up further. "Small creature, do you understand the forces arrayed against you? Beyond your pathetic star system lies the Crimson Fleet of Admiral Korath. 400 warships, each capable of reducing your cities to glass. The Admiral has conquered civilizations that possess technology your species cannot even comprehend." Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief scientist and Captain Santos's closest advisor, stepped up beside her. The older woman adjusted her glasses and smiled politely at the alien ambassador. "Ambassador," Dr. Vasquez said in the tone one might use with a particularly difficult student, "perhaps your empire should reconsider this course of action. We would hate for there to be any unfortunate misunderstandings." This time, Thralix's laughter was unmistakable. The sound echoed through the diplomatic shuttle and sent chills down the spines of every Vorthon crew member who heard it. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever suggested that the mighty Vorthon Dominion might want to reconsider anything. Misunderstandings? Thralix wiped what might have been tears from his massive eyes with one of his smaller arms. "You speak as if you have something with which to threaten us. Your sensors show our fleet. Count the ships, little creatures. Count them and despair." On cue, space around Earth began to fill with emerging Vorthon vessels. The Crimson Fleet materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation, their arrival choreographed to maximum psychological effect. Massive dreadnoughts, each stretching 3 miles from bow to stern, took positions around Earth's moon. Smaller cruisers, still larger than anything in Earth's official navy, formed a deadly perimeter around the inner solar system. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Emperor, watching Earth through viewports that stretched the entire width of the massive vessel. Like all Vorthons, he was an impressive physical specimen, but his cybernetic enhancements made him even more formidable. His left arm had been replaced with a mechanical limb capable of crushing steel, while neural implants allowed him to interface directly with his ship's tactical systems. "Status report," Admiral Korath commanded, his voice amplified by throat modifications that made him sound like a force of nature. "All vessels in position," replied his tactical officer, a creature whose organic brain had been augmented with quantum computing systems. "The human homeworld is completely surrounded. Their primitive satellites show no significant military presence. A few patrol craft, some orbital installations, nothing that could threaten even our smallest escort vessels." Through his neural interface, Admiral Korath could see tactical displays showing Earth's defenses. It was almost insulting how easy this conquest would be. The humans had actually dared to refuse the Dominion's generous offer of servitude, but their defiance would collapse the moment they truly understood their situation. Back on Orbital Station 1, Captain Santos nodded, slowly as she watched the alien fleet deploy. Around her, her crew worked with quiet efficiency, but she could sense their growing tension. To anyone observing, Earth appeared completely outmatched. "Ambassador Thralix," Captain Santos said, her voice carrying clearly through the communication. "Link, you've made your position clear. We've made our position clear. I suppose there's nothing left to discuss except the timing." "Indeed," Thralix replied, his satisfaction evident. "You have 48 of your planetary rotations to prepare for unconditional surrender. After that time, Admiral Korath will demonstrate why 73 star systems chose wisdom over destruction. Perhaps watching your orbital stations burn will help your species understand the futility of resistance." Dr. Vasquez leaned close to Captain Santos and whispered something that made the captain nod slightly. The scientist's eyes held a glint. That suggested she knew something the aliens didn't. "Ambassador," Captain Santos said, "we truly tried to warn you. Remember that in the days to come." The communication ended with Thralix's triumphant laughter still echoing through the human station. As the alien diplomatic shuttle withdrew to rejoin the main fleet, Captain Santos turned to address her crew. "All stations, implement Protocol 7. Authorization, Santos Alpha 779. Around the station, control panels that had remained dark suddenly blazed to life. Deep within the structure, systems that had been carefully disguised as simple life support equipment began, humming with power that registered on no conventional sensors. Throughout the solar system, similar transformations were taking place on installations that the Vorthon fleet had dismissed as primitive mining platforms and communication relays. Dr. Vasquez smiled as she watched readings that would have been impossible according to known physics. "Maria, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. The galaxy is going to know what we're capable of." Captain Santos nodded grimly. "Elena, they had their chance. We offered them a peaceful, Withdrawal. We warned them multiple times. Now they get to learn why humanity survived the Void Wars. 47 hours later, Admiral Korath stood ready to deliver the opening bombardment that would break human resistance forever. His targeting computers had locked onto every major population center on Earth. In 60 seconds, the primitive planet would understand the price of defying the Vorthon Dominion. "All ships report ready," announced his tactical officer. "Weapons powered, targeting solutions locked. The humans appear to be broadcasting some kind of transmission on all frequencies." "Let them plead," Admiral Korath replied with satisfaction. "Record their final words for the archives. Begin bombardment in 30 seconds. But the transmission wasn't a plea for mercy. Captain Santos appeared on screens throughout the Vorthon fleet, her expression calm and professional. "Vorthon forces," she announced. "This is your final warning. Withdraw from this system immediately or face the consequences. We take no pleasure in what happens next, but you have forced our hand." Admiral Korath's laughter boomed across his bridge. "Consequences, from primitives with chemical rockets and atomic weapons, commence firing." 400 Vorthon warships opened fire simultaneously, their energy beams converging on Earth from every direction. The planet should have died in that moment, reduced to a molten ruin by the combined firepower of the Crimson Fleet. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams simply vanished, absorbed by a defense system that operated on principles the Vorthons couldn't detect or understand. Earth remained pristine and untouched, protected by technologies that made the Dominion's weapons seem like primitive toys. In the stunned silence that followed, Admiral Korath stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. Every weapon in his fleet had fired at full power, and Earth had shrugged off the assault as if it were nothing more than a gentle rain. "Status report," he roared, his cybernetic enhancements sparking with feedback from his shocked neural interface. "Sir," his tactical officer replied, his synthetic voice cracking with electronic stress. "All weapons fired successfully. Energy readings confirm full power discharge. But the planet is completely undamaged. Our sensors show no impact signatures, no energy dispersion, nothing. It's as if our weapons simply ceased to exist." Admiral Korath felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Genuine fear. The humans hadn't just survived the opening bombardment. They had made it disappear entirely, using technology that operated beyond Vorthon understanding. On Orbital Station 1, Captain Santos turned to Dr. Vasquez with a heavy sigh. "Elena, bring the real fleet online. Show them what human engineering looks like when we stop playing nice." Across the solar system, space itself began to ripple and fold as humanity's true defenders emerged from dimensions that the Vorthon fleet couldn't even detect. The war for Earth was about to begin in earnest, and the Crimson Fleet was about to discover why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous species, when properly motivated. The Vorthons had chosen war over wisdom. Now they would learn the true meaning of both. The reckoning space around Earth began to twist and fold in ways that violated every law of physics the Vorthon Dominion had mastered over 3 millennia of conquest. Reality bent like heated metal as dimensional rifts opened throughout the solar system, each one releasing vessels that seemed to emerge from the fabric of spacetime itself. Admiral Korath watched in growing horror as his tactical displays struggled to make sense of what they were detecting. Ships that shouldn't exist were materializing from impossible angles, their very presence causing his most advanced sensors to report contradictory readings. The first human vessel to fully manifest was the Terra's Wrath, a sleek predator that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. At only half the length of a Vorthon cruiser, it should have been insignificant against the massive alien fleet. Instead, it moved through space with a fluid grace that suggested complete mastery of forces the Dominion had never encountered. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, his ice-blue eyes studying the Vorthon formation with the calculating gaze of a born tactician. At 35, he had spent the last decade preparing for this exact scenario. His crew worked around him with silent efficiency, their movements coordinated by neural interfaces that allowed them to think and act as a single organism. "Status report," Commander Morrison requested, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had faced impossible odds before. "All stealth systems online," replied his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen. Despite being only 26, she had already earned a reputation as one of humanity's most gifted pilots. Her fingers danced across control surfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. "Dimensional anchor points established. The Vorthan fleet is effectively trapped in our local space-time bubble." Through the main view screen, Commander Morrison watched Admiral Korath's flagship attempt to activate its hyperdrive. The massive vessel's engines flared with energy that should have torn a hole in reality, allowing instant escape to distant stars. Instead, the Crimson Emperor remained exactly where it was, held in place by forces that existed outside conventional understanding. "Commander," came Captain Santos's voice through the communication array, "you are authorized to begin Phase 2. Show them what happens when humanity stops being polite." Admiral Korath felt his cybernetic systems overloading as impossible readings flooded his neural interface. His fleet of 400 warships, the pride of the Vorthan military, was surrounded by human vessels that seemed to phase in and out of existence at will. Even worse, his scientists were reporting that local spacetime had been somehow locked, preventing any escape to hyperspace. "How many ships are we facing?" he demanded, his mechanical arm crushing the armrest of his command chair. "Sir," his tactical officer replied, his voice strained with electronic feedback. "That's impossible to determine. Our sensors detect anywhere from 30 to 300 human vessels, depending on which scanning frequency we use. Some ships appear to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The first human attack came from a direction that shouldn't have existed." The Earth defense ship Quantum Storm materialized inside the Vorthan formation, having somehow folded space to bypass every sensor and defensive screen. Its weapons, when they fired, didn't launch projectiles or energy beams. Instead, they released streams of reorganized reality that simply rewrote the molecular structure of their targets. The Vorthan battlecruiser Bloodfang never had a chance to react. One moment it was a 3-mile-long instrument of destruction. The next it was a cloud of component atoms drifting harmlessly through space. The ship's crew of 8,000 experienced no pain, no fear, no awareness of their dissolution. They simply ceased to exist as the boundaries between matter and energy became temporarily meaningless. "Impossible!" Admiral Korath roared, watching his tactical displays struggle to process what had just occurred. "No weapon can do that. Energy cannot simply reorganize matter at that scale." But the impossible was becoming routine as more human ships entered the battle. Lieutenant Sarah Chen led her fighter squadron in an attack run that defied every principle of combat the Dominion had ever learned. Her craft, the Solar Wind, pulled gravitational forces that should have crushed both ship and pilot into neutronium. Instead, she emerged from a spiral maneuver that bent space around her, appearing behind 3 Vorthan interceptors and destroying them with precision shots that seemed almost casual. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," Lieutenant Chen announced over the communication array, her voice steady despite the impossible physics she was manipulating. "These Vorthan ships have an interesting weakness in their power coupling systems. Try targeting the junction points between their hull sections." Within minutes, human pilots throughout the battle were adapting Chen's discovery, their ships sharing information through quantum-entangled communication networks that operated faster than light itself. The Vorthan fleet, designed around 3 centuries of military doctrine, found itself systematically dismantled by an enemy that treated each engagement as a learning opportunity. Admiral Korath's cybernetic implants sparked as emergency alerts flooded his consciousness. In the first 30 minutes of combat, he had lost over 60 capital ships to an enemy that seemed to rewrite the rules of warfare with each attack. Worse yet, the humans appeared to be treating the battle as some kind of training exercise. "Sir," his communications officer announced, his reptilian features pale with shock, "we're intercepting human pilot chatter. They're joking with each other during combat. One pilot just thanked another for providing such interesting target practice after destroying our dreadnought Void render." The admiral felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest: complete helplessness. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that viewed the Dominion's greatest military formation as nothing more than an amusing challenge. The situation grew even more desperate as the battle continued. Human ships began demonstrating technologies that operated on principles beyond Vorthon comprehension. The Terra's Wrath simply phased through the armor of the battleship Crimson Death, its weapons materializing inside the enemy vessel's reactor core. The resulting explosion was contained within a localized space-time distortion, protecting nearby ships while completely vaporizing the target. "Status report," Admiral Korath demanded, though he dreaded the answer. "Sir," came the grim reply, "we've lost 217 vessels. Human casualties appear to be 0. Our weapons cannot achieve target lock on their ships, and when we do manage to fire, our energy beams pass through them as if they don't exist." Through his neural interface, Admiral Korath could see the tactical situation with crystal clarity. His fleet was trapped, outgunned, and completely outclassed by an enemy that seemed to treat the laws of physics as polite suggestions rather than absolute rules. In desperation, he activated his emergency communication array, sending a priority transmission toward the Dominion's core worlds. "This is Admiral Korath of the Crimson Fleet. Request immediate reinforcement by the Imperial Guard. The humans possess military technology beyond our current understanding. This is not a standard conquest. Repeat, this is not a standard conquest." But even as he sent the message, Admiral Korath realized it might be too late. The human fleet was moving with coordinated precision that suggested they were operating under a single tactical intelligence. Each ship knew exactly where every other vessel would be, allowing for attack patterns that seemed choreographed by some impossible strategic mind. Commander Morrison watched the Vorthon fleet's desperate attempts at escape with something approaching sympathy. These alien warriors had conquered 73 star systems, but they had never faced an enemy that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. "Commander," Lieutenant Chen reported from her fighter, "the Vorthon flagship is attempting to break through our dimensional anchor points. Should we stop them?" Morrison considered the question carefully. The humans could easily prevent any escape attempt, but perhaps it was time for a different approach. "Negative, Phoenix Leader. Let's see what they do when given a choice." On the bridge of the Crimson Emperor, Admiral Korath felt a surge of hope as his hyperdrive system suddenly began responding normally. The human dimensional locks had been lifted, offering him a chance to escape with what remained of his fleet. It was a choice between tactical withdrawal and total annihilation. But before he could give the evacuation order, a new transmission filled his bridge. Captain Santos appeared on his main screen, her expression calm and professional despite the devastating battle raging around them. "Admiral Korath," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chaos. "We're offering you and your surviving crew safe passage out of our solar system. Your ships will be allowed to leave unmolested, provided you agree to carry a message back to your empire." The alien admiral stared at the human commander in disbelief. His fleet had been systematically destroyed, his most advanced technology rendered useless, and now his enemies were offering mercy. It was beyond his comprehension. "What message?" Admiral Korath asked, his pride warring with his survival instincts. "Tell your empire that humanity tried to warn them," Captain Santos replied. "We offered peaceful coexistence. We gave multiple opportunities for withdrawal. What happened here today was their choice, not ours. If they send another fleet, the outcome will be the same." Dr. Vasquez stepped into view beside Captain Santos, her scientific instruments still registering readings that would have been impossible according to Vorthon physics. "Admiral, we've been monitoring your communications. Your empire spans 73 star systems, but you've never encountered a species like ours. We evolved in isolation, developing technologies that other races never imagined. This doesn't have to mean eternal war between our peoples." Admiral Korath looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew members. Fear, confusion, and dawning respect warred in their expressions. These humans had demonstrated overwhelming military superiority, Yet they were offering terms that allowed the Dominion to maintain its dignity. "What assurance do I have that you'll honor this safe passage?" the Admiral asked. Commander Morrison's voice joined the conversation from the Terra's wrath. "Admiral, if we wanted to destroy your remaining ships, we could have done so at any time. We're offering this choice because humans prefer cooperation to conquest. Your empire can learn from this encounter, or it can repeat the same mistakes with the same results." For the first time in his 3-century military career, Admiral Korath found himself genuinely considering retreat. The tactical situation was hopeless, but the humans were offering something he had never expected: a chance to preserve his remaining forces and return home with valuable intelligence about this new threat. "I accept your terms," Admiral Korath announced formally. "The surviving vessels of the Crimson Fleet will withdraw from your system and carry your message to the Dominion High Command." As the battered remnants of the Vorthan fleet prepared for departure, Admiral Korath sent one final transmission to Captain Santos. "Human Commander, in 3 centuries of conquest, no species has ever offered mercy to the Dominion after achieving military victory. Why do you do this?" Captain Santos smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, her expression held genuine warmth. "Admiral, because we understand that today's enemy might become tomorrow's ally. The galaxy is vast enough for both our peoples if we choose wisdom over warfare." As the Vorthan ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying their wounded pride and hard-earned respect back to the Dominion's core worlds, humanity's true fleet began folding back into the dimensions from which it had emerged. Within hours, Earth appeared once again to be defended by nothing more than a few orbital stations and patrol craft. But throughout the galaxy, word was already spreading. The Vorthan Dominion, conquerors of 73 star systems, had met their match in the humans of Earth. The species that had seemed primitive and helpless possessed technologies that operated beyond conventional understanding, commanded by leaders who combined overwhelming strength with unexpected mercy. In the months that followed, other alien empires would reconsider their expansion plans when they encountered human space. The lesson of the Crimson Fleet would echo across countless worlds. When humanity warns you to run, you should probably listen. Earth had announced its presence to the galaxy, not through conquest or subjugation, but through the demonstration that even the mightiest can show mercy to those wise enough to accept it. The age of human isolation was over, and the stars themselves would never be the same.